This book made me feel like a child discovering fantasy. When I read On Wings of Ash and Dust by Brittany Wang, I didn't expect it to grip me the way that it did. Because there's a very specific type of person that this book is perfect for, and if you're one of them, then you're gonna love it. Which is why I'm gonna be breaking my thoughts down on this book today, starting with the plot. When I first discovered this book in 2021, it was when Brittany Wang was releasing the book in such a way that I hadn't seen before. She was releasing it in an episodic 6-part series. She was releasing one book every 2 weeks, and it was different parts, and that really intrigued me because I really like TV shows, and at the time I hadn't read any kind of big fantasy books. So the idea of just reading a little bit every 2 weeks seemed like a more digestible way of picking it up. I didn't actually end up getting the book until it had come out as a full omnibus, and when I sat down to read it, even then it still felt like it was broken down into a brilliant and digestible way. Brittany Wang has really captured that feel of what a television storyline kind of does, and like drags you along, where you've got this kind of episodic structure with something going on in the background. The plot itself centers around a big competition called the Ethodyne. Now, the Ethodyne is actually what each book is basically about. You got a bunch of royal fairies that are thrown into this competition, and they're competing, and the winner will be able to have the throne. Also, did I mention that all of these fairies come from different clans? So it's kind of got that like Harry Potter effect where you can choose which clan that you are. I'm a dryad, by the way. And Brittany Wang has put out some awesome questionnaires that you can fill in online. There's all sorts of cool stuff that she likes to do to figure out where you will fit within all of this. But yes, it was an extremely digestible plot as a result of that. And this is the book, I always say, this is the one that got me into fantasy. And the reason why it got me into fantasy is because I was so nervous about taking on the genre. So to find something that was so digestible where I could just read a small part at a time, I kind of rinsed this through. I've read this thing twice now, and both times I found myself really enjoying it. Brittany knows how to create a huge level of intrigue within her books. There are also plenty of twists and shocks along the way, and I do believe they were layered really well in a way where you kind of always felt like you were gaining some kind of knowledge per every episode of the book, or part of the book, depending on what you want to call it. But each one did offer some kind of progression, and you always felt like you were learning something and that you were going towards something. And that is kind of what helped pull me through the whole book, really. I was just rinsing through it. I found it very difficult to put down, especially on the second read. When I'd had a little bit more experience reading more fantasy books. This one, I was just like rinsing through and enjoying the whole journey. That episodic structure is just something that might annoy some people, but definitely intrigues me, and I love it. I actually think I love that kind of episodic side, because even though it is episodic, there is also something else going on, which kind of is over the entire story, and does mean you'll need to read the entire thing to be able to get the overall picture that builds to the climax. And boy, the climax does pay off. Everything, that it is building up to, all of the foreshadowing is actually explained in such a clever way. There are moments of foreshadowing I didn't even realize were foreshadowing. On the second read, I was like, oh yeah, that's foreshadowing this, and that's foreshadowing this. So really well layered and well written plot by Brittany Wang here. But not only does it wrap up the story really well, there's enough at the end of it where you feel like a sequel would be good. It would be good to have a sequel. And, the great thing is that there is a sequel coming, and I am an ARC reader, so you'll be seeing a video from me in a few weeks' time talking all about book 2 early, but we'll talk about that another time. For now, we're going to talk about the characters in book 1. Particularly, we have 5 different characters, and every single one of these characters has something to offer to this story. The main character, Quinn, in particular, I don't think it is a spoiler to say that within the first 3 chapters, something very tragic happens within her family, and it's very sad. And I gotta commend the way that Brittany Wang manages to make you connect with the characters so deeply in such a short amount of time that when this tragic strikes, you genuinely feel it for the family, and you can really see where Quinn is coming from. Also, Quinn is extremely flawed. Like, she does things that are gonna slightly annoy you, but all in the best ways, because she's flawed in a way that you know that she's going to grow out of said flaw, and certain things are brought up very early on in the story, pointing out, you know what, Quinn, you might not be as good as you think you are, and there's more to you than meets the eye. And I think that was something that really kept me going when reading Quinn. It is all written in Quinn's point of view as well. But let's talk about a few of the other characters. We have got Aaron. Aaron is the love interest. This is a no spice fantasy, so if you're thinking, oh no, not Court of Thorn and Roses, I don't want the kind of spicy fairies, I never asked my fairies to do that, then this is the book that is for you, because there is love between fairies, and it's no spice. And Aaron, from the very start, is awesome. You really just... Yeah, he's great. He's great. His entrance is great. His banter is great. His situation is extremely interesting and kind of adds to that romantic layer of kind of like, will she actually get with him in the end? Won't she get with him? There's something going on there. There is a he falls first trope here, and I can't exactly pin the exact moment that he falls for Quinn, but he does. And so if you're into your he falls first trope, then this is going to be the one for you. I'm not sure if it's... I don't think it is insta love. I think he does sort of become attracted to her over the first few chapters, but it happens really quick. Like, this romance just rockets along, like it very much doesn't hold up. But there are enough interesting obstacles in the way to be able to keep you going. But Aaron, he's the merman, he's awesome, and we love him. And there's a real twist with him, which is quite dark, actually, and I'll let you discover all about that a little later on. Then we have Vale, and she's kind of like Hermione Granger, but if Hermione Granger was kind of like Regina George. She's like, you know, not the nicest of people when we first meet her, but she's all about knowledge and books, and she's part of the Sylph clan, and she really gives Quinn a run for her money, I think. All of these characters, what's great about them is they all kind of complement Quinn's growth, but then Quinn also kind of complements their growth, which goes really well. We've got Alice. She's a mute beast tamer who has got a dragon called Tommen, and that's just cool, isn't it? It's cool. Do I have to say that she's got a dragon called Tommen? She wears black gloves, and everyone says that she's got the touch of death, so anything that she touches, she kills. But you'll find out more about her powers when you read the book. And then finally, we have got Hickory, who is this blind artist. He's a kobold. They're like from like under the ground, so I believe his vision isn't exactly great, but he's extremely good at drawing, and he's trying to figure out this kind of ancient conspiracy that Quinn gets involved with, and the kind of like, it's so interesting. They're all competitors at the start of the book, but as the book progresses, it is all about these 5 characters and how things develop over time. Now let's talk about the fun factor. This is kind of like a young adult version of your Peter Pan fairies. We've got pixies, we've got pirate action, we got like everything that you would ever want from the Tinkerbell franchise, but thrown into sort of a YA environment. So like no spice Winx Saga style we got here. It's really interesting and really fun to be around these characters. I think part of the fun for me of this one was it was almost like rediscovering my childhood. I was getting to be around these characters that I'd kind of grown up reading, and it was good to be around them again, but in an environment where they kind of complemented me as to where I am at right now. And no, I know the hair kind of gives away that I'm not a young adult anymore, but it's definitely accessible for adults too. Of course, I already mentioned the pacing, but the fact that it was literally so Moorish. Every episode had a decent amount of chapters, but it also left you on such a cliffhanger that you were able to keep going every single time. Brittany Wang has certainly incorporated some of the cool things that they do in television, you know, at the end of each episode, giving you that little incentive to keep watching. She's definitely been able to bake that into the story, which has really helped the fun of it too. And the best bit is that the book, each one, not only does it like keep you reading, but the fun of it is that you actually get a load of different payoffs, because these were actually released as 6 separate books, even though they make up one big book. So you get a payoff for every single part, and each payoff doesn't feel like it erases the last one or kind of is too much before the next one. The payoffs build and build and build, and they stack to a point where when you get to the final payoff, oh, yes, it's very, very fun and very exciting to read. I already kind of touched upon the emotional resonance in the fact that I was able to connect with these characters. A lot of the feelings that I got from this one was warmth, and happiness and joy and coziness. There was a lot of that going on. But of course, there was also sadness as well. Like, the characters, like, Brittany Wang doesn't hold back from giving tragedy to her characters for them to deal with. Yeah, you do feel sad for them. You feel excited. There are moments of shock and awe when the plot twists come out. This one really sticks. I personally wasn't as connected emotionally as other people that I saw reading. I know that someone was reading the book in the group that I was reading, because we were talking between us, because the art readers were doing the reread before the actual main arc, and I know that someone said that one description made them cry because it really reminded them of a relationship that they have within their life. And this, to me, just proves that Brittany Wang knows how to bring out emotions in people and knows how to kind of write things that people will relate to. The friendships that are made over the time, you do end up finding yourself getting extremely invested in this group of friends, and it was a joy to be part of this parasocial relationship with these 5 different characters. And so, yeah, I think you really do care about them because they care about each other, you care about them. This book never really made me feel anything outwardly, so I didn't cry or anything, but I was certainly feeling quite warm throughout. The romantic tension does add to the emotional stakes of the story, and the beats of said romance, despite me saying earlier that they moved kind of quickly, that didn't take away from the fact that you were really rooting for those 2 characters to get together, and when they did, and when things went wrong for them, because things obviously inevitably go wrong, you really do end up feeling frustrated or upset, and there is a big part of you that is rooting for everybody to succeed in some way, which makes it kind of difficult, seeing as they're all in a competition where all of them could die, and only one of them is allowed to win, so get your head around that. Really caring about all these characters, but knowing only one of them can win, yeah, it's pretty daunting. But the final emotional takeaway of this one is more comforting than devastating. If you're looking for a bit of a palate cleanser, this is probably one that you want to be picking up. If you're having a hard time, maybe pick up this book. It will make you feel a lot better. There's something really lovely and nostalgic about this particular book that kind of feels like a big warm hug. I would absolutely recommend anyone who needs a bit of a warm hug right now, go and read this book, because these fairies will heal your soul, sort of. There are moments when they will rip your soul out, but don't worry, it won't be that brutal, and they'll put it back just fine. So let's talk about readability. The prose of this book is delivered in first-person present tense, and I can tell you now, that was the right choice. It really allows you to feel like you're in the present moment. I will say that this is a lot more simpler and easy to digest prose than kind of going for the big purpley language. It's prose that focuses more on keeping you within the moment rather than trying to focus on too many things at once, and I do think this was the right choice from the experience. It doesn't take away from the plot. In fact, it allows you to focus more so on the character, down to the way that the prose was. Each character has a set of dialogue that fits perfectly with that character, and I would say the dialogue is actually done really nicely here. You can definitely distinguish the character down to the point when sometimes I would read what a character was saying before they came onto the page, and I would know that it was that specific character, so the dialogue was done extremely well. Overall, you're looking at a kind of a calming, relaxing reading experience. This isn't something that's going to tax your brain or challenge you too much. This is something that is going to carry you through the story at an engaging pace. And finally, let's talk about the world building. This is a world that draws on familiar fairy-type mythology. There's nothing particularly new that you haven't seen before, but it's done in such a way that it's extremely nice, that it's all kind of mashing a load of stuff together that really works. The world itself, we don't get to see a heck of a lot of. We get to see little snippets of each part of the world, and that then makes this world feel kind of small in some ways. It's not a vast, sprawling epic of a world. It's a very small landscape, which actually makes sense quite a lot within the story, because these are fairies, and there's a big twist towards the end, which I can't talk about, but I'm just going to say the world of this kind of story will probably get a bit bigger due to what happens towards the end of the book. And so, yeah, I would say it's very kind of concentrated, is what I would say about the world in this book. You're not going to be going on any big major quests. There are sections of the book you get to spend a little bit of time in each part of the world, and then you kind of wrap it up towards the end. And that is because each sort of province is ruled over by one of the different fairies, and each of them host one round of the competition, so you get to go to all of these different places. So yeah, while it's not big or sprawling, there's a lot of variety within this. You spend some time underground, you spend some time in like a underwater style zone. There's some beautiful libraries which I imagine smell of parchment, which would be lovely to visit. There's a lot of parts of this world that just feel really cozy and what you expect from a fantasy, and that's what makes this a joy to be part of. I really enjoyed being in this world. I can't say that I came out of this book with the world being a selling point of the book, but that's okay, because actually that made it extremely digestible. What you got to understand about fantasy, especially if you haven't read much of it, is that sometimes it can feel overwhelming and difficult to digest, and it was down to this book kind of strengthening my confidence to then go out there and try other books. So this isn't like me bringing it down or anything, this is just me saying it's quite a small world, and honestly, if you're interested in a big epic sprawling one, this might not be you. For you, it's not like it's not for your grimdark reader, it's more for your cozies. But also, if you're just getting into fantasy, then this is definitely a book I would highly recommend for you to be able to check out, because most fantasy books come with what I like to call a learning curve, and this one has such a small learning curve that it feels really accessible, and it's something that you can dive straight into. This world in particular prioritizes charm over complexity, and I really think there's something to be said about worlds that do this, because it makes it a lot easier to read and really backs up what I was saying earlier about this being a good palate cleanser. So the setting exists to allow Brittany Wang to explore some of the themes that exist within the book, and the way that the world evolves by the end is something that we will talk about at some point when you've read the book, because I'm not going to spoil that for you. But honestly, if you have already read the book, do let me know in the comments if there's anything that I missed. Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it to anyone? If you'd also like to see any more of the book recommendations that I've got, then don't forget to check out this playlist here. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.